You're listening to Garibaldi Red, a Nottingham Forest podcast brought to you by Nottinghamshire Live. Hello and welcome to the Nottingham Forest Facebook page from Nottinghamshire Live. My name is Matt Davies and I'm joined by Reds fan and journalist Chris Ellis, where we are going to discuss Huddersfield 1, Forest 0, and get some thoughts on that from ourselves and you guys watching along on the stream. So drop some comments and questions in and we'll go through a few. It's not going to be pretty, I'm sure, Chris. I can give my opinion but in a minute, but what did you make of it?
I mean, let's start at the beginning, and this isn't going to be an excuse, but you know, if there's a red card, which should have been a red card, could the game have been any different? And maybe it would have been. So, you know, that's one thing I think to take in consideration. But take that aside, you expect an 11-11 on game for Forest to be beating Huddersfield, and it just wasn't good enough in the end. They had glimpses. Amiobi looked terrorized them in the first half at times, but really went missing in the second half. I thought the fullbacks were disappointing for me. Their distribution was very poor. Time and time again, they had the ball in space on the wings and the distribution was poor. And yeah, there were glimpses at times. But once Forest went behind, and it's becoming a bit of a pattern, although I suppose they were better last week, but that was 2-0 down, wasn't it, when they had to really give it a go. But I just felt there was nothing there. And I read a tweet from someone I follow on Twitter, and they made a good point. They said, I can't quite put my finger on what's wrong. It's not awful, but it's not great. And I think he was kind of right. It wasn't terrible. You know, we've seen far worse, but it was far from great. And yeah, there was some decent things in there, but they just got outworked. I think in a nutshell, I think Huddersfield outworked them. They've got to work harder if they're going to win games.
Yeah, I mean, if you go for the team selection, it's difficult to change your entire back four and have much cohesion. But I thought Forest were decent in the first half. Hamer made a great save from Amiobi. He made a good save from Embasso. I thought Forest was the better team first half. I think what disappointed me, and I think you can understand the lack of confidence, was the response to the goal. I don't think Hamer's made another save since then. Forest looked quite rigid. How many times was Colback holding his hands up saying, give me some options. And like you say, I thought the fullbacks were both disappointing on the night. But again, they're betting into a new side. You don't want to be too critical of individuals, but collectively, I just thought the response to the goal was disappointing, to say the least. What did you make of the team selection, Chris? Were you surprised by so many changes, or did he have to do something afterwards, the third three games?
Yeah, I mean, 7's a lot of changes, isn't he? But, because there've been so much disappointment. I mean, when the team was named on social media, I saw a lot of excitement. A lot of fans were really happy. But maybe there needed to be maybe 4 or 5 might have been better. But it's easy with hindsight, because those 7 changes, that I noticed on Sky, they talked about last season hanging over Forest still. But a lot of those players weren't involved, were they, last season? In fact, was it 2 players or 3 players started that final game? Can't remember off the top of my head. Amiobi was one, so was it another, that final game. Just trying to think if there was one more. That actually started the Forest 11, because, of course, Steele played in goal. So Amiobi and So, I think, off the top of my head, were the only 2 that started tonight, that probably started that last game against Stoke City. But yeah, it just felt that the team. I like the team when it was set up. Is he? Were Colback and So and Arthur, are they a bit too similar? I don't know. I mean, the thing is that people talk about playing 2 up front. I don't think Sabra's going to play 2 up front. That's not his style. And to be honest, how many teams do play with 2 up front these days? I mean, and that brings me on to another point. I thought Taylor was slightly disappointing. I mean, he'll argue that he didn't get the service, but I don't think he put himself about like Grabban perhaps did at times last season. So there's just a lot to work on. I mean, 3 defeats. I mean, someone said Forest, I get on social media, I said if Forest aren't careful, they'll be in a relegation battle. I don't believe that for 1 minute, but if they've got aspirations of being at the top end of the table, it's 3 defeats already. How many do you think you can take if you go for a title? 9, 10? I remember Forest going up from the Championship one year with 9 defeats, I think. So they've already had 3. So it's been a tough start, and they're going to need something quickly here, aren't they?
Oh, absolutely. I'll read a few of these comments out. I don't want to dig individuals out. So people, there's a lot of comments about the fullbacks and one in particular, and I'm not going to read all those out. People can comment underneath as they wish. Matt Starr, no desire to get forward or back, no passion for the club. I don't think I agree with that. I do think the Diakabi miss, it wasn't exactly a flood of players getting back. Maybe they thought it'd gone to Diakabi and everything would be all right. I don't know, but
no passion for the club. It's an easy thing to mix with just playing badly. I mean, I've seen that with ice hockey as you have as well, and fans talk about no passion. I'm sure there's passion there, but they're just not getting it right. I mean, you can't say guys after 3 games, I think, no passion. But the contributor there, I understand, because there was something wrong, wasn't there? What you just couldn't put your finger on it, but it wasn't that high energy tempo that you wanted. So I understand the comment, but of course there's passion there, and those guys will be hurting tonight.
Absolutely, I do agree. I think that the effort was certainly there. I think the confidence is lacking, and I think that seems in part to stifle the creativity. I'm going to lead on from that from a comment from Richard Leonard here, which is interesting and pretty constructive, to be fair. We had nothing in midfield, no one could to create anything of substance. I said it before about the transfer policy, too many transfers, and we waste games bedding people in. Do you think that they've signed too many players? I mean, it's great you back the manager. I'd have thought, when I looked at this team at the end of last season, I thought 4 or 5 signings, fantastic. What are we up to now? 12? 11?
11 or 12, yeah. 11, I think, with one more allegedly to come, something like that.
It's a lot of signings. And I put on Twitter myself, I don't see how you bed this team in quickly. I think they're good signings, but you're in a position where you need to start winning games. How do you do that? It's very difficult when you've not had much of a pre-season. Do you think that as fans, we might just have to swallow it now and be a bit patient and give them an opportunity to bed in? And when this team does hit its stride, you would be confident they can go on a proper winning run?
I mean, I think that's a very good point. And going back to the original point, the contributor was right. You didn't feel there was any, real quality to create something in the midfield. Amiobi did it. When he had that spell in the first half. Joe Loddy didn't start. When he came on, he didn't really do much. And those were the 2 players that created a lot for Forest last season. But you're right. I mean, any team that has this amount of turnover, you're going to be very lucky if it can hit the ground running. And it's not as though they were signed, all of them were signed in a week before pre-season. They had that bit of pre-season together. The Jukes, a lot of these players have come in the past couple of days. I mean, well, a couple of them did, haven't they? So, I mean, it's going to take time. I think it is going to take time, and that's a problem. But time is something that Sabri Lamouchi probably doesn't have. So that's another discussion, and I'm sure that the tweets are already coming in, and the messages on Facebook about his future. But yeah, maybe. I mean, let's not forget. I mean, long-time Forest fans remember that the Forest lost the game to Millwall. This is the season that Frank Clark took them up. They were something like 17th, 18th, and they lost the game at home to Millwall 3-1. I remember it well because. Forest were 3 down, and say many fans remember this. Forest were 3 down, and Lee Glover scored a goal to make it 3-1. It's the only time I've ever heard a goal scorer's name announced and the fans booed. They were that miserable, and they lost 3-1. But I think from that moment on, Collymore lit it up, and Forest, turned it on and got promoted that year. So my point there is, you can have terrible starts and still turn it around. And when that Forest team were playing with the likes of Collymore and Bahinen and Steve Stone and Pearce at the back, of course, they were great to watch. And Forest fans have got to hope that this team can turn it around. But football's very different now to those days. But I'm not going to get all nostalgic.
I know people are going to say it's pointless talking about it. It's a moot point and, the game's over. But what did you think of the challenge by Hogg in the first minute? I mean, it doesn't change the result because Forest have lost. But to me, it was a nailed-on red card if the ref has a proper view of it. Yeah,
I mean, I touched on it at the very start. And, it could well have changed the game. We'll never know. But, yeah, it's a red card. The replay is on the television. It doesn't look like the refs had a good enough view. So you have to accept it of one of those things. Should one of the linesmen seen? I don't know. I can't picture where the linesmen were at the time. It's just a shame that no one saw it. And that is a frustration because, it could have been a very different game, as we said. But you kind of have to isolate that and look at the performance, over 90 minutes. And as we said, maybe Forest deserved a point. I think, if Forest had come away with a 1-1 draw, you'd have gone, we could have done with a win. It'd been preferable, but at least things are going in the right direction. And I think they were not too far off a point tonight. I don't think they deserved to win. And I've not really got many complaints about the defeat, but if you see what I mean, if that chance from Amiobi goes in early on, maybe it's a different game. But it's just not, but it's better. It was better than the first two games, wasn't it? It's a lot better than those first games that we've seen so far, or the four now, if you take the Barnsley game as well. It was better at times, and you can just see that back end against Cardiff and some spots here in the game tonight that things are slightly improving.
There's one thing I want to address that keeps coming up week on week on week. Every time we do this at the moment.
Well, hang on. I could just say one thing. No one can moan about Ryan Yates tonight, can they?
No, that's true. That's true.
Thank God.
Eddie Howe, I assume. Why would Eddie Howe is surely not going to come to a Championship club. We love Nottingham Forest. I just can't see it, whether if they sack Lamucci. I just wanted to say that. I think, if they sack Lamucci, I'd love it for Eddie Howe to come in. I don't think they should sack Lamucci at the moment. I think they're going to have to give him a chance. But I thought I wanted to say that. I can't see Eddie Howe dropping down to the Championship. Can you?
I don't think so. But, Forest have been very ambitious. There's no club probably in any division that sign as many players as they have. And, as the window's gone on, it's got better for Forest. It's Arta's signing. I've never seen a signing in recent years that had universal approval of that one. The signing, normally you have your old doubters, or he's too old, he's this and he's that. But it came a little bit out of left field. Obviously, the talk was all about McKenna, and it was obviously that McKenna was just about to be done. But then, of course, this one came out, and it was like a sort of surprise one for the Forest fans. It does seem like he wouldn't drop down, but. He'd look at that squad. That's the point. He would look at that squad and say, I fancy getting that squad up. There'll be a lot of managers who would look at that squad and think, I can get this team playing. They might change the style. Again, the possession stats can't have been great. I saw them after something like 30 minutes and I think it was like 60, 70-30, something like that. And it kind of got much better in the second half. So once again, there's the argument about the possession. But I've defended Sabri Lamucci publicly a number of times, and I still would be very sad to see a change. It's not long ago that Forest fans on away games were chanting his name and were in raptures with the guy. But I guess the sad point is he's lost 3 straight in a when the management of the hierarchy have backed him.
You mentioned Arta there. I thought he was one of the positives to come out of it. He wasn't brilliant because no one was, but his energy was very impressive. He's nasty and needly, and he's one of the players that you hate if he's on the opposition. And I think he adds the character that Forest need. You look at the team on paper, in theory, there's quite a lot of character there now, isn't there? Colback, McKenna looks like a leader straight away. I thought he was pretty good, although we'll ask about the goal in a minute, where I don't think anyone was that great. But they do seem to have... I think Arta adds something that's definitely missing. What did you make of him?
Yeah, I think you're right. I think he of the central midfielders, he was definitely the best. Walked a tightrope. I'm getting sent off himself, which is a fair point. Colback. I just thought he gave the ball away too much for me. I take your point from earlier that you felt that there was no outlets for him, and you could see that frustration. But Arta was certainly the better of the 3. Definitely, I think he's a very good signing, and he will be a very good player this season. I thought the 2 central defenders the other and McKenna both had, like you said, McKenna's going to put himself around a bit. So, should have scored perhaps with his chance. And, at times I thought he looked, okay, composed on the ball when he brought it out the back. So there's positives in there, isn't there? Which is the frustrating thing. But once again, they've not scored and they've lost another game, which is really what matters in the end.
Yeah, I do think there's the ingredients of a good team there. To be fair, like you say, I agree about the centre halves. I think when Joe Worrell's back again, it sounds like he's injured. There's the makings of a good spine of that team now through the middle. Would you still like to see them play two up front or not?
It's a tough question. Yeah. I'm not convinced by two up front. If you go back 20 years, 4-4-2 was the way. I just don't think Lamouchi is going to play two up front. I don't think, there's not many European managers really that do play two up front, is there? But would I like to see it? Yeah, I'd like to see what Grabham and Taylor can do in a game together. How he would then change behind him, you'd definitely probably go with one less defensive midfielder. So it'll be interesting to see how he adapts the team behind the front two. We've not mentioned Freeman, and I thought Freeman was a bit disappointing tonight. He got substituted, didn't he? And again, he was another player I was really excited to see sign for Nottingham Forest, and he just didn't do enough really for me, this evening. So that was another slight disappointment. But yeah, you know what? Even though I don't think Lamouchi will play at two up front, I think it would be interesting to see, but I just don't see it happening. Not while Sabri is in charge.
No, I think I agree. I agree about Freeman as well. It wasn't his night really, but maybe having Arter with his energy does give you the opportunity to free up another attacking player. I thought Amiobi was good. He looked like he was up for it. I thought, what did you make of Amiobi briefly?
Yeah, first off, he was great. I mean, the jinx in from the left wing, wasn't it? When he put it across the box, ball could have gone anyway. In fact, it deflected off a Huddersfield defender, and I thought it had gone in. And it obviously just kind of like bobbled further down the right-hand side. But no, Amiobi was very good in the first half. He drifted a bit in the second, but then came back into it. Played with a lot of passion. I mean, I like the way he played. He seemed to be in this running battle with the referee, but I like the passion. I mean, if you had to say who was man of the match, I'd probably give it to Amiobi. There was a lot about him, and again, the other players showed it in glimpses, but Amiobi just kind of looked the most dangerous one throughout the course of the 90 minutes.
True. Let's talk about the upcoming fixtures then. Who Forest have got next? I can't even remember who it is. Do you see? Let's have a quick look. Yeah, Bristol City, Blackburn, Rotherham, and then obviously a big one against Derby. I mean, on paper, they're not the worst fixtures in the world, but with confidence as it is, how do you feel about those next three games before the Derby one?
Well, I mean, they've just got to beat Bristol City, haven't they? There's whether Sabri's in position or not, they've got to beat Bristol City, a home game. They're just, say a home game, but with no fans in it, it's a very different type of football. I mean, the sad thing is it's the Derby game, a city ground game with no fans. The one in lockdown last time was away, wasn't it, at Derby? So there's nothing better, and I'm sure you'll talk about this nearer the time. There's nothing better than especially under the lights. Don't think this one's under the lights, is it? Is it a Sunday afternoon?
3 o'clock on a Saturday.
3 o'clock on a 7:45. There you go. So it's It's got moved, hasn't it, recently for TV? And half Forest games are getting moved at the moment, so it will be under lights. But yeah, that's going to be sadly missed with no fans. But with those ones, you've got to be looking for 6. You've got to be looking for 7 points. Forest needs 7 points now going into the Derby game, don't they? They need to be beating Bristol City and Rotherham. They've got to be beating Rotherham at home, and you would like them to get at least a point away at Blackburn going into Derby, where 3 more points and maybe fans will be smiling again.
I think that might be all right if they can score first in a game. At 0-0 today, I thought they looked fine. As soon as that goal went in, they just seemed to whether it was confidence or what, everything seemed to drain away, and they didn't test Hamer at all. It wasn't chalk and cheese. I'm not saying they were brilliant before that, but it was a bit alarming that they just couldn't create, wasn't it? I thought, I mean, Mighton was busy as well, though. Do you take any belief from that if they do score first, they could be all right?
Yeah, I'll touch on Mighton first. Again, I thought he put himself about a bit. We didn't mention him earlier. And yeah, he put himself about a bit without really having that final quality. But he ran at the defence, which I liked, a bit like Amiobi. But he just was missing that final quality in the final third. He caused some trouble, and he won a few free kicks. But yeah, that was him. What was the original question? I've totally forgotten.
Confidence of scoring first.
Absolutely. I mean, there was a stat that was put out this week by someone somewhere, and I've clean forgotten it. But basically, Forest struggle when they go behind, and that is the truth. And if they can just get that first goal, I mean, I think let's go forward to Saturday. If they can get the first goal, I think they can put 2 or 3 past the tie aside. And maybe Bristol City is on Saturday, but but what does he do with his strikers? I mean, that's another question. I mean, I don't think Lyle Taylor's done enough to warrant a start next week. The word was that Grabban had got a slight knock. Grabban came on within 30 seconds. He was, a whisker away from scoring. So I would go with Grabban next week if he's only going to play one striker. I think Taylor's. Don't get me wrong. I think Taylor's. I beg your pardon. Is a good addition. But if he's only going to play one, I think it's Grabban and Taylor will be on the bench. But yeah, confidence is massive for them, and if they can score first, I think they'll win a game. But when they fall behind, they just don't seem to have that belief at the moment.
Yeah, I agree mostly. I disagree about Taylor and Grabban. I think I'd start Taylor next game, I think, and get bodies around him. I thought his hold-up play was all right today without him looking like he was going to score. I'd like to see a bit more of him personally. Right, let's finish with a crumb of comfort. Tell us it's all going to be all right, Chris.
Well, what do you say is all right? They ain't going to get relegated.
I'm saying, we're going to turn it round. We're going to charge up the table. Oh dear. My word. Okay, I mean, it's 3 games, isn't it? Teams lose 3 games in the course of a season quite often. It's just really amplified when it's the first 3 games. And I know everyone's going to say to me, well, it goes back into last season as well. But this is a different team with a collective mental hangover that I think probably hampers the new signings as well. And they just have to start winning. Yeah, Chris, tell me they're going to start winning. Tell everyone they're going to start winning.
Well, I think, I saw enough today in glimpses that there's some promise there. They've signed some cracking players in the past week. They've had a great transfer window. And yeah, I think things are going to be okay. But it, already 3 games lost is a long way to come back. But I refer back to, the year they went up under Frank Clark. It's not, I know football's different now, but it's not impossible to get a run together. We've seen teams, even more recent times, come from lower to mid-table and get promotion. So, it's not by any means done and dusted. I think Forest fans shouldn't write this season off or anything stupid like that. There's some real quality players. And again, they mentioned this on the television. They've signed some players that know the championship. They've just got to get to know each other. And as I say, that's the awkward thing. They weren't signed in a long pre-season like we'd normally have. And that's been I guess another problem for them. I'm not making massive excuses, but it wasn't a normal pre-season by any stretch of the imagination. And I guess it was harder to get business done, in a decent amount of time. So, there's a lot of quality in that team, and the standout players from last season added to the players he signed. I would be flabbergasted if it doesn't turn it around. And I'm going to stick my neck out. And my problem when I stick my neck out recently, I've been getting it wrong. And this harps back to last season. But they'll beat Bristol City on Saturday and they'll win by a couple and we'll all be smiling.
I hope you're right. I think they can. Bit of creativity, better delivery from set pieces. That was disappointing tonight. The crossing wasn't great. If they can just find a way to get it right in the final third, I think there's the making of a side there. Like I said at the start, I think it's going to take time to blend this team together, and I think we're going to have to give Lamucci a chance now, assuming the club are going to do that. Let's see what happens. Everyone's disagreeing with us, but that's football. So thanks everyone for watching. We'll be back with a proper episode of Garibaldi Red next week. And thanks for everyone who watched along, put comments in and a few questions, and we'll see you all soon.
Thank you for listening to Garibaldi Red, a Nottingham Forest podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, then please let us know. We love hearing your feedback. We'll be back soon with another episode. Thanks for listening.